So guys, what's going on? And I hope you guys are well. So guys, I wanted to do a video that I promised to one of my subscribers about Roy Jones and Sugar Ray Leonard. He asked me who do I think would win that fight between those two. It's a bit of a difficult one because, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard started off his career, I believe, at welterweight. And Roy Jones started his career at super welterweight, light middleweight. And Roy Jones was a very, he was a bigger guy than Sugar Ray Leonard. Both were two of the greatest ever. I'm assuming that fight would take place at middleweight. If that fight was to take place at middleweight, who do I think would win? Or any weight, to be honest with you. Who do I think would win? Sugar Ray Leonard had a really high boxing IQ. We saw that against Roberto Duran and many other fights that he had. He had an unbelievable boxing IQ. His hand speed was on another level. His foot speed, he was probably the most complete fighter out of the four that we get to hear about. Hagler, Hearns, Duran, and Duran, Hearns, Hagler, and Leonard. He was probably the most complete out of all four of them. He had great defense. He had great foot speed, hand speed. He had knockout power as well. He had punching power, which was underrated. And he was just brilliant. I think I always have discussions about this with a lot of people, that he was probably the closest that we've seen to Muhammad Ali in terms of his movement, in terms of the way he used to dance around the ring. He was brilliant. Sugar Ray Leonard was an artist. Roy Jones was one of the most naturally gifted fighters ever. He was just on another level, Roy Jones. He was special. Roy Jones was a special fighter. I think people look at the end of his career and they see him get knocked out so many times and they forget how great that Roy Jones was. Roy Jones was an unbelievable fighter. An unbelievable fighter in his prime. When you see some of the highlight reels and you see some of his fights and the things that he was doing inside the ring and how fast he was, how fast of hands he was, his hand speed was so quick. It was on another level. It was on another level. He absolutely dismantled so many guys. And when I look at that, when I think about that fight, it's so hard to pick a winner. Been watching these guys fights and watching these guys, it's so hard to pick a winner in a fight like that because they're both on such a high level. Like I said, Roy Jones didn't have the greatest fundamentals, but he was so naturally gifted and so unorthodox and so much better than everybody else, right? That he was just on another level. But as we saw, as he got older and his skills diminished, he wasn't as fast as he used to be. He started getting knocked out and he started getting exposed more because, like I said, he didn't have the greatest fundamentals. Like a lot of people would say, a lot of people in boxing that have a lot of knowledge say that Roy Jones, he did everything wrong but made it right because he was so gifted and so talented. Roy Jones had a lot of flaws, but a lot of fighters couldn't take advantage of those because he was just so good and so fast. And just so hard to handle. Most guys couldn't live with him. And as he got older, his skills started to diminish. His reflexes, everything about him started to slow down. His hand speed and everything. You just have to slow down a split second. And now all of a sudden, those fighters that were missing you are now landing punches and hurting you and knocking you out. So I think with the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, I think prime for prime. Just because I think Roy Jones was bigger and I think he was a freak of nature, I would pick Roy Jones on points. Because I think Sugar Ray Leonard was really tough and he was unbelievable. But a lot of people will be surprised by me picking Jones. Because I think Sugar Ray Leonard, in most people's eyes, might be viewed as greater than Roy Jones. Roy Jones doesn't have that. I know people say he's a great and etc. Obviously, people know that he's great. But I don't think Roy Jones has that aura that Sugar Ray Leonard had, or a Floyd Mayweather had, or some of those guys. I don't think Roy Jones gets the kind of credit or gets put even in those guys' league. Maybe it was because of the way his career ended towards the end. But let me tell you something. That guy was special. In his prime for prime, he was one of the greatest fighters ever. Honestly, he was that special. He was that special in around his prime. You know, you just need to go watch the Olympic Games when he got robbed and won the silver when he should have got the gold. You could just see how special the guy was. You know, some of his fights, like, wow. He was so fast of feet, so fast of hands. He was on another level. He was on another level. Roy Jones for me. And like I said, I like Sugar Ray Leonard. I think Sugar Ray Leonard was obviously a great, but I think Roy Jones would beat him. And that's saying something, because I think Sugar Ray Leonard could beat Mayweather. I do. I think Sugar Ray Leonard was that good. I think Sugar Ray Leonard had such a good boxing brain. He had such a good boxing IQ. Such fast hands, such great footwork. He was so fast. He was so fast. And Roy Jones for me was even more, like, his hand speed was on another level, but he was unorthodox. He was unorthodox. He was, oh man, Roy Jones was special, man. Roy Jones was a special fighter. When you look back at some of his highlight reels, you get to see how great he was. So I would pick Roy Jones by points, but I don't know what you guys think. I'm pretty sure some of you may say, well, no, you pick Sugar Ray Leonard, which wouldn't surprise me. I would pick I would definitely pick Roy Jones at middleweight on points. I would think so personally. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to call. You know, you couldn't say for sure, because Sugar Ray Leonard was that great and he was that great a fighter. But again, I would pick Roy Jones on points. I don't know whether you guys will agree with me. Maybe some of you may say no. Some of you may disagree and say no. You feel that Sugar Ray Leonard will take it on points. I don't know. That's just my take. I'm not claiming to be right. It's just watching both of their fights, analyzing their styles, looking at how good Roy Jones was in his prime, looking at how good Sugar Ray Leonard was in his prime. The fact that Roy Jones was a bigger man. I believe he was taller. He had the longer reach. That would play. That would definitely help Roy Jones in a fight in that fight. Honestly, Roy Jones was a great fighter. Like, fighters like that don't come around often, and fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard don't come around very often. But let's not forget, Sugar Ray Leonard was a welterweight. He wasn't a legitimate middleweight or even a super middleweight. Now, he did go on to win against Hagler, but that was Hagler against at the end of his career. He also went up to light heavyweight. But again, like I said, for me, his best weight was welterweight. Whereas, Roy Jones went up to heavyweight and won a world title. This guy was Jones was a special fighter. He was an unbelievable fighter. So, like I said, I would pick Roy Jones on points. But like I said, if you're picking picking Sugar Ray Leonard, it is what it is. Sugar Ray Leonard was also a great. And like I said, he had many attributes. His hand speed, foot speed, his ring movement, his ring generalship, IQ was on another level. Sugar Ray Leonard. He proved that many times. The first time when he fought Duran, he went to war with him. And then he realized, or his brother told him for the second fight, that you don't stand and trade with this guy. Box him. And that's what he did. He boxed him and he embarrassed Duran, really. Duran couldn't get near him, and he effectively quit because he just couldn't get near him. He was being embarrassed by a superior boxer. So that's what Sugar Ray Leonard was. He was an unbelievable boxer. But they both were very good boxers. But I just think that Roy Jones is an unnatural ability. He had weird ability. His ability was on the next level. He was in his prime. He was as close to unbeatable as you would get. He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. You watch Roy Jones and you think how is someone going to beat this guy? It just looks impossible to beat him. He was that good. He was that good. So I would pick Roy Jones on points. Let's not forget, Roy Jones in his prime beat Bernard Hopkins comfortably. You know, so yeah, I would pick Roy. I would pick Roy, even though Sugar Ray Leonard for me is on another is better than Bernard Hopkins, especially in around his prime. But like I said, I don't think Sugar Ray Leonard was a natural middleweight. And I think if you were to put them in prime for prime, right, both at their best, I feel that's Roy Jones, because of his ability, also with the size that he had over Sugar Ray Leonard, would get the job done on points. I don't think he'd stop Leonard. I think Leonard was too tough. I think Leonard had a granite chin. Very, very tough guy. I think it would be more a points job. Unanimous decision. Let's not forget, Sugar Ray Leonard was used to going 15 rounds as well. You know, Sugar Ray Leonard those guys went 15 rounds. So Leonard was a beast, but Roy Jones was a beast. And I would just pick Roy Jones on points. What would you guys think? Who would you favor? Roy Jones or Sugar Ray Leonard? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think. I definitely favor Roy Jones on points. But what do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to know your opinion. And guys, remember to smash that like button. And I'll hopefully see you all in the next video. Peace.